Imagine you are standing between every life you could have lived. Not metaphorically, not as a thought experiment on a sleepless night when the regrets come in quietly and arrange themselves in the dark, but literally, actually, in a library that should not exist, between shelves that stretch in every direction without end, holding in your hands a book that contains a life, your life, but different. The life where you said yes instead of no, where you stayed instead of leaving, where you made the phone call, took the job, kept the cat, told him you loved him before it was too late. Every book is a door. Every door is a life. And you have until the library closes, until the time between your death and whatever comes after runs out, to find the one worth living. The question is whether you know what that looks like. Whether you have any idea, standing in the wreckage of the life you just left, what a life worth living actually contains. Whether the things you regret not doing would have saved you or simply given you different things to regret. And the deeper question, the one the library is really asking, the one Matt Haig built this entire cathedral of a concept to ask, is whether the life you dismissed as not enough was, perhaps, the one that contained everything you needed, and you simply could not see it from the inside. This is the Midnight Library, and it will ask you things about your own life that you were not prepared to be asked today. Who was Matt Haig when he wrote this book? Matt Haig is a writer who came to his subject matter the hard way. In his late 20s, he experienced a severe mental health crisis, a depression and anxiety so acute that he stood on the edge of a cliff and came very close to not walking back from it. He survived, and the experience shaped everything he has written since. His memoir, Reasons to Stay Alive, published in 2015, was a frank and generous account of that crisis and its aftermath, of what it felt like from the inside and what helped, and what the recovery looked like when it finally, slowly, came. It became one of the most widely read and widely gifted books about mental health of its decade, passed between people who recognized themselves in it and between people who wanted to understand someone they loved. The Midnight Library, published in 2020, is the novel that grew from the same territory. Not a memoir this time, but a fable, a story that takes the question at the center of his own survival and gives it a fantasy architecture wide enough to examine it from every angle. What makes a life worth living? Not in the abstract. Specifically, concretely, in the ordinary details of an ordinary day. What would you have had to lose in order to understand what you had? Haig wrote the book during a period when these questions felt unusually urgent, not just personally, but globally. It was published into a world that was, collectively, in the middle of something that was forcing people everywhere to examine their lives and find them insufficient or fragile or not what they had assumed. The book's timing was not calculated, but it was perfect. It arrived when people needed exactly the question it was asking. He is a writer who wears his earnestness without apology. He believes in the value of being direct about emotional truth. He believes that fiction can be a vehicle for genuine philosophical inquiry without losing its humanity or its warmth. The Midnight Library is the fullest expression of that belief. Let us enter the world of the book. Nora Seed is 35 years old on the night the library opens for her. And the night the library opens is the night she decides to die. She does not make this decision dramatically. She makes it in the specific, quiet, exhausted way of someone who has been doing the arithmetic of their own life for a long time and has arrived, on this particular night, at a sum that does not justify continuing. She has lost her job. Her cat has died. The one friendship she was tending carefully has just told her it does not want to be tended. She has not spoken to her brother in years. The life she imagined for herself, the swimming, the music, the things she was supposed to become, did not happen. And the life she has instead feels, on this night, like insufficient compensation for the effort of continuing. She is not a villain. She is not broken in any dramatic or exceptional way. She is a person in whom the ordinary losses of an ordinary life have accumulated to a weight she cannot carry on this particular night. And that specificity, the ordinariness of Nora's crisis, the way her reasons are real and comprehensible and not special, is one of the book's most important choices. Haig is not writing about an extreme case. He is writing about the threshold that is closer to more people than most of us acknowledge. And then the library. Between death and whatever comes next, Nora finds herself in a vast space that looks like a library and feels like possibility. At its center is Mrs. Elm, her school librarian, the adult who was kindest to her when kindness was most needed, who serves as the library's keeper, its explainer, its patient and occasionally pointed guide. The shelves contain books of an uncountable number, each one a life Nora could have lived if she had made different choices at the turning points of her history. The central book is the Book of Regrets, a catalog of every decision Nora has made that she wishes she had made differently, the people she did not call, the opportunities she did not take, the relationships she let go of or failed to pursue. Reading it is excruciating in the specific way that a detailed list of your own regrets would be excruciating, not because each item is catastrophic, but because of the cumulative weight of them, the evidence they constitute that the life you lived was not the life you might have had. And then Nora begins to try the other lives. She steps into the life where she stayed with her fiancé, Dan, and married him. The life where she pursued her swimming career to its Olympic potential. The life where she moved to Australia with her friend Izzy. The life where she stayed in the band with her brother, and they became famous. Each life contains things the Nora who chose differently does not have. Each life also contains things she does not recognize, costs she did not anticipate, losses that arrived by a different route. The structure is a series of short, sometimes very short, excursions into these alternate lives. Haig uses the parallel lives device not as a gimmick, but as a philosophical instrument, each life teaching Nora something about what she thought she wanted versus what she actually needs, about the difference between the fantasy of a different choice and the reality of the different life that choice produces. Now we go to the heart of it. The central question of the Midnight Library is whether regret is an accurate guide to desire. Nora's regrets are real. The things she did not do are real things she did not do. But the library is revealing, one life at a time, that the version of those things she regretted not having bears only partial resemblance to what having them actually looked like. The swimming career she imagined, the Olympic success, the recognition, the feeling of having reached her potential, exists in the library as a life with achievements she did not predict and losses she did not factor in. The marriage she did not have contains a person she no longer knows, and a life that is not hers in ways that feel immediately and unmistakably wrong. This is not an argument that our choices are always the right ones or that regret is always false. It is a more precise and more honest argument than that. It is the argument that regret is retrospective, that it measures the life you did not live against the idea of that life rather than its reality, and that the gap between those two things is almost always larger than we account for. We regret not taking the road less traveled. We do not because we cannot imagine the specific gravel on that road, the weather on that road, the way our feet would have blistered in the shoes we would have been wearing. The library gives Nora the ability to take the other roads, and what she finds on them, again and again, is not that they are bad, most of them contain genuine goods, but that they are not, somehow, more hers than the life she left. That the self that arrives in each alternate life is slightly wrong in some way she cannot immediately identify, like a key that almost fits the lock. Something is always missing, and the journey of the book is the journey of discovering what that something is. Haig writes, with the directness that is his signature, that it is not the lives we did not live that need to be examined. It is the life we did, and what it contains that we have not been looking at. Let us talk about what this book is really saying. The first great theme is the philosophy of the present life. The Midnight Library is, at its philosophical foundation, an argument for presence, for the value of the life that is actually being lived rather than the lives that exist as possibilities in the imagination. But it makes this argument honestly, without sentimentality, without requiring Nora to pretend that the life she has is wonderful or that her regrets are unfounded. The argument is not that her life is good. The argument is that it is real. And that real, with all its difficulty and loss and ordinariness, is the only place where anything that actually matters can happen. This is a harder argument than it sounds. It is easy to say be present, be grateful, live the life in front of you. It is considerably harder to mean it in a way that has any weight for someone standing in the rubble of their own choices. Haig earns the argument by not making it cheaply. He lets Nora try the other lives. He lets them be genuinely appealing. He does not rig the contest. And the conclusion she reaches is more powerful because of that, because she reached it through experience rather than being told it. The second great theme is the falseness of the unlived life as ideal. Every life Nora has not lived is, in her imagination, the better version, the one where she got it right. And the library dismantles this one life at a time, not by showing that those lives are worse. Some of them are not, but by showing that they are simply other. Different losses, different gains, different versions of Nora who made different sacrifices to become who they became. The unlived life is always perfect because it has never been tested by reality. It has never been rained on. The regret we carry for the lives we did not live is partly grief and partly fantasy. The grief is real. Real things were given up. Real paths were not taken. Real losses were incurred. But the fantasy is the assumption that the other path would have led somewhere definitively better rather than simply somewhere different. Haig is not dismissing the grief. He is questioning the fantasy. And in questioning the fantasy, he is freeing Nora and the reader from the specific cruelty of comparing a real life to an imagined one that never had to pay the costs of being real. The third great theme is the connection between smallness and meaning. What Nora eventually discovers, and this is the book's central revelation, earned slowly rather than stated quickly, is that the things that mattered most in her life were not the grand achievements she regrets failing to reach. They were the small, ordinary, unremarkable things. A conversation with a specific person, the feel of water during a swim that was never going to be Olympic, a moment of music. A kindness given and received in a place so ordinary it was almost invisible. The lives that feel most like hers, across all the libraries she visits, are not the ones with the most success or the most recognition or the most external markers of a life well lived. They are the ones that contain specific small moments of genuine connection. And the argument the book is making, gently, persistently, with enormous respect for how hard this is to believe on a night when you are deciding whether to continue, is that those moments are available in the life she left, that they were there, that they are still there, that the life she was about to give up contained, woven into its ordinary days, exactly the things she has been searching the library to find. Now let us look at the characters as the people they truly are. Nora Seed is the most important person in the book and the most difficult to write about simply because she is designed to be recognizable rather than exceptional. Haig has done something technically demanding. He has written a protagonist who must be sympathetic and specific while also being universal enough that readers from wildly different circumstances can find themselves in her. He succeeds by making her inner life legible without making it generic. Her specific regrets are hers. The structure of the experience, the accumulated weight of ordinary losses leading to an extraordinary despair, belongs to anyone who has been there. Her relationship with her own potential is the thread the book follows most carefully. Nora was, by many measures, talented, a strong swimmer, a capable musician, a person with genuine capacities that the circumstances of her life and her own choices did not develop. The gap between what she was capable of and what she became is real. Haig does not pretend it is not. But he is asking whether that gap is the right measure of a life, and whether the person she was capable of becoming and the person she actually became are as different as the unlived life mythology requires them to be. Mrs. Elm is the book's great structural necessity and its emotional anchor. She is not a complex character in the traditional sense. She is a presence, a continuity, a version of the kindness that Nora needed and sometimes received in her life distilled into a single figure. Her patience is the book's patience. Her refusal to judge is the book's refusal to judge. And her occasional directness, her willingness to say the thing that needs to be said without softening it beyond usefulness, is the book's backbone. The other characters who appear through the alternate lives are sketched rather than fully developed, which is appropriate. They are the furniture of lives that are not quite Nora's, real but not as real as the people in her actual life, present but not yet fully inhabited. The people in Nora's real life, her brother Joe, her friend Izzy, the neighbor Ravi, the man she almost married, are more present precisely because they belong to the life she is returning toward. What has this book done in the world? The Midnight Library was published in September 2020 and became one of the defining books of that particular moment in time. Into a world that was, collectively, in various forms of crisis and confinement and forced reckoning with the actual shape of the lives people were living, it arrived with a question that felt specifically and urgently relevant. What is worth living for? Not in the grand sense. In the specific, daily, ordinary sense. It became a #1 bestseller in multiple countries. It won the Goodreads Choice Award for fiction. It was translated into dozens of languages and read by millions of people, many of whom described it as the book that arrived at exactly the right moment, that said something they needed to hear in a way they could receive it. The mental health conversation around the book was significant. Haig, who had been open about his own experience since Reasons to Stay Alive, provided with this novel a fictional framework through which people who had experienced their own versions of Nora's night could see their experience named and honored and moved through toward something. Mental health professionals noted its potential as a tool for conversations about suicidal ideation and the distorted thinking that accompanies it, specifically the all-or-nothing logic, the certainty that the life being lived is definitively insufficient, and that this certainty is accurate rather than symptomatic. The library, as a metaphor, offers something that direct argument about the value of life rarely manages. It does not tell you your life is worth living. It shows you what it would actually mean to trade it for a different one. The book also generated significant discussion about the philosophy of regret, about whether the regrets we carry are accurate measurements of what we missed or distorted comparisons between real losses and imagined gains. It brought a genuinely philosophical question into the mainstream conversation without requiring the reader to have any philosophical background. This is one of Haig's great gifts, the ability to make ideas that live in academic philosophy feel immediately personal and immediately urgent. Now let me be honest with you. The Midnight Library is a book with a large and generous heart and a straightforward didactic purpose that it pursues with more transparency than some readers will prefer. It is not subtle about its thesis. It is not interested in ambiguity about its central argument. This is, depending on your temperament, either the book's great virtue or its limitation. Haig is a writer who believes in directness. He believes that the clearest possible statement of an important truth is more valuable than an oblique treatment that preserves the truth's difficulty at the expense of its accessibility. This produces a novel that is enormously readable and emotionally immediate, and sometimes, for readers who prefer their fiction to resist easy resolution, a little too clear about where it is heading. The parallel lives structure is brilliantly conceived and executed with considerable variety. The lives Nora visits feel genuinely different from each other, and the lessons they provide are not repetitive even when they are building toward the same conclusion. But the structure is also the book's greatest vulnerability, because it is fundamentally a sequence of variations on a single theme, and some readers will feel the repetition before the conclusion arrives to justify it. The prose is clean and warm and precise, and occasionally, briefly, genuinely beautiful. It is not pyrotechnic. It does not call attention to itself. It serves the story and the idea with a transparency that is itself a form of craft, even if it is not the craft that wins literary prizes. Who should read this book? Anyone who has spent significant time in the museum of their own regrets, measuring the life they have against the lives they did not have. Anyone who has experienced a night like Nora's or loved someone who has. Anyone who wants a novel that will ask them genuinely uncomfortable questions about their own life and answer those questions with warmth rather than judgment. Read it if you need to be reminded that the small things are the real things. Read it if you have been comparing your actual life to an imagined version of a life you did not live and finding the actual one consistently lacking. Read it if you are in the business of trying to stay and need a story that makes the case for staying with more specificity and more honesty than you usually encounter. Read it if you want to sit with the question of what you would find if you walked into your own midnight library and began to try the doors. We reach the end. Matt Haig wrote The Midnight Library from the specific knowledge of someone who has stood at the edge of their own life and chosen, in the end, to step back. He wrote it with the generosity of someone who knows that the step back is not easy and not automatic and not adequately honored by the world's impatience with people who are standing there. He wrote it for the people who are standing there right now, and for the people who have stood there, and for the people who love someone who might be standing there and do not know what to say. The library closes, eventually. The time between death and whatever follows does not last. Nora must choose, not which life she wants in the abstract, but whether she wants a life at all. And the choice she makes is not made because everything is resolved or because the grief is gone or because the regrets have been retroactively corrected. It is made because she has seen, from the specific angle that only the library's strange gift could provide, something she could not see from inside her own life. That the life she was living contained things worth living for. That the connections she had and the small moments she had experienced and the particular way she moved through the world as the specific person she was, none of that was waiting for her in any of the library's other books. It was only here, in this one, the one she came from. The library does not tell you your life is good. It tells you that it is yours. And that yours, with all its losses and its failures and its ordinary days and its moments of genuine and unspectacular beauty, is the only place where the things that matter to you specifically can exist. Nora goes back. Not to a perfect life, not to a resolved life, to a life that is still difficult, still incomplete, still in possession of all the losses that brought her to the library in the first place. But to her life, the only one she has, the only one she is. And the book asks you, in the last pages, with the gentleness of someone who means it completely, whether that might be enough. It is asking you now. What would you find in your midnight library? And what would it take for you to close the book, step out of the dark, and go back to the life that is waiting for you in the morning?